Welcome to Rooftop Conversations. So, you might have seen the great cartoon that on my page, and also for those who personally know me, all these different cartoons and artwork that are done of me and my body. So, I am so honored to bring the artist behind all of those great works. To the show today, Melissa Khaimova, a Jewish artist based in Brooklyn, New York, my home borough as well. She's also a local New Yorker who runs her art business and does amazing pieces on especially women and fat bodies. And it's something that personally is amazing to me. And like as a fat person myself, it's truly liberating. So of course, Melissa, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and talk about your work, like just like a quick, you know, like 2 minute bio about yourself and like
Okay.
what you've done in your company.
So like May said, my name is Melissa. I'm from Brooklyn. Most of my art has initially revolved around myself, and it's almost been like a therapy for me for when I couldn't speak what I felt. I would paint what I feel. So, in times of stress, being also a fat person and not being able to see myself in other platforms, I've decided I'm going to be that person that puts my body on that platform. So, most of my work revolves around people I know. I don't go and Google reference photos. I ask people to send them to me because I want to represent actual people that I know. So, I just want to be able to make fat bodies not a weird thing. I think because people don't see them, they assume it's just like not normal. But the majority of the time, women are plus size or whatever you want to call it. Because I mean, I don't even think a size 14 is plus size, but we're not going to get into that. Um, but yeah, that's the gist of my artwork.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with everything you just said. I think that's one of the reasons why I really do love the pieces that you do. Not even just the ones of myself, but like other ones that I've seen, because they do normalize fat bodies, right? It's something that you not only normalize just fat bodies, but also parts that are stigmatized, right? Stretch marks, belly rolls. I don't know what the proper
Right.
term for them are, but you are like you like definitely highlight and beautify, not beautify, because those things are they were never ugly to begin with, but you kind of showcase these parts that are stigmatized in society in such a normal and artistic way to break that stigma, and that's something that's beautiful about your art, and something that I
Thank
respect
you.
about you and your work. um, and so so before we begin and dive deep into the interview, I would love to hear from your own words. And might be like an interesting story because we met in a very unconventional way. But
Right.
I'd love to hear in your own words how we met. And this is something I ask all my guests, like how we met and what was your first impression of me? Because I feel like people are too nice on me on this, and I'm just like I need like the honesty.
Okay. So basically, I used to work at a pop up exhibit, and May came in, and we were pretty empty that day. So she just asked me to take pictures of her in each of the rooms, and I was like, I got something to do now, so I'm totally fine with that. And it was funny to me because I related to you in the sense of like every picture that you saw, you're like, can you take one more? Take one more. And I do the same thing to the point where I'm like, can you just take 30 of the same picture? So it was funny to me. And I was like, I felt like I related to you, especially, I mean, I naturally, whenever I see people that are like the similar size to me, I'm always like, this person gets me. I know that they get me. And we did, I think we talked about it too, about like dating when being overweight, and it kind of just rolled into something else. So I'm really glad that we connected, through Instagram too. And like you've bought work from me, which means like so much being a small business. So yeah, that's about it.
Honestly, like I get it. Sometimes, like I think for me, seeing another person with my body just makes me feel like the solidarity makes me feel safe. I know for me, like growing up, so I actually like was always the biggest girl in the room, and it just always made me feel like the oddball out. And like exactly what you said, right? So you said size 14 to you isn't even plus size. I'm a size 14, and
Yeah.
it's so weird because like now we have these conversations of fat privilege and not fat privilege, sorry, fat phobia, but also within that, different body size, right? Like small fat, someone
Right.
who be a 12 to 14, 16, like medium fats, infinite fats, and then there's, a whole bunch of different categories. Where
Right.
sometimes for me, like I have to reflect on that privilege too. Like, oh, wait, do I really like benefit from do I actually benefit from like body privilege because I do fit in a smaller body than a lot of my other fellow fat folks out there and
Right.
a more like in quotes acceptable body. So but yeah, I mean, I think fat solidarity is awesome. Honestly, it is a thing. It gives you a safe space to talk to another person who can relate on those things, right? Like folks who benefit from thin privilege do not experience the same things as folks in fat bodies, such as like medical bias or dating
Right.
or things like that, accessibility issues. And those things are so frustrating. And people like,
Yes.
I'm glad that more people are talking about it. And I think like people initially just thought like fat bodies and like body positivity was like, yes, self-esteem, let's feel good about ourselves. But like,
Right.
no, there's actual systemic biases and like things that fat folks like face. And I think it's great that like other fat folks are like speaking on behalf of like their other fat sisters, and sisters, brothers, siblings, and it's awesome. And yeah,
Right.
and
Like
you do that with your art.
I felt the same way, like how you said, like I was always the fat body in the room. And even like I look back in pictures and I was like, I wasn't even fat. I just wasn't skinny. Like it doesn't make sense to me that was I grew up thinking I am so fat. Like it's insane. And then I look back, I'm like, I was a size 6. Like what was I talking about? So it's
No.
literally, I feel you 100%.
It's so like I think like honestly like fat phobia and like diet culture warped everyone's minds so like badly that like you even said like a size 6 is considered for you at the time like fat. Like even for me looking at like pictures from high school, I was bullied. Like I was like severely bullied for my
Yeah.
weight, and I looked and I'm like, I'm actually bigger now than I was back then.
Same.
And
I'm
like
bigger now than I was like 2 years ago.
I'm thinking that a couple months ago. I'm not even gonna like front. But you know what? Like, I think that's what it is. Like body transformations. It's like metamorphoses, right? Like caterpillars morph and change into butterflies, and I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way that we should start looking into diet culture and fat phobia. It's just like our bodies change, our bodies move, our bodies grow, and that's just human. It's just being human, and like whatever size or whatever shape that your body decides to take up space in, take up the space, and
Yes.
that's what you do with your art. So moving on with the next question. We're digressing. This always happens on the show. I have a set of questions and then I talk about a whole life
Yeah.
story. But um I'd love to hear about, well, what was your influence into pursuing an art career, right? You like doing this full time, doing this as your career, doing this as your job. What inspired you to head into that field?
So I've been painting, drawing, whatever since I could pick up a pencil. Literally used to like draw on the walls. It was bad. Like I would make a mess. But it was always, I saw it as like a side thing that I just like to do. And then when I went to college, I was like, oh, I'm going to do pre-nursing, which I failed the chem regents twice. I mean, I should not be doing pre-nursing. So I did one semester and I was like, wow, I suck at this. Like I can't do this. So I just decided to like make myself feel better. I would take an art class the next semester because I was like, I can't pursue an art career. It's not like realistic, blah, blah, blah. That one class, I changed my major to studio art. I started taking art history classes, and it's just like I said before, it's been such a therapeutic thing for me that without it, I feel really lost. Like I feel like I'm missing a part of me. Even when I spend a few days not painting or not drawing, I'm like, oh my God, I need a day. I just need a day to do it.
I truly think, like, I used to be one of those people. I think this comes from my upbringing, being in a very conservative Asian household. It's like STEM is the only career that is worthwhile pursuing. Everything else was
Yep.
like, no. Like, I didn't even have the lawyer option. I feel like all my STEM friends were like, yeah, my parents wanted me to be either a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. I was like, no, I didn't even get the lawyer option because there was too much work. There was too much words involved. Like, it was too many humanities. So, but then when it comes to like the arts, like everyone would be like, oh no, it's not a career, it's not a thing. But
Yeah.
and like even like I was guilty of that as well.
So
But
was
I think
I.
like yeah, and like the more like my best friend is an artist herself, and like talking to you, talking to her, talking to other of my fellow like artist friends, it's it's actually like much more hard work than it is. First of all, like people think it's like easy, it's not.
Right.
Two, there is a really great value, exactly what you said, right? Like it's therapeutic. It's not only for the person who creates the art, but the person who views it. And
Right.
media, art, creativity, they have so much to do with shaping and influencing how we see things and um, how we see things and how we like look at the world, which now
Right.
goes to your art, right? You're conveying your purpose in creating your art is to promote fat bodies in a positive light that's not seen in mainstream media or not seen even in mainstream art. I think
Right.
like it's interesting because looking back at like art, like Renaissance era, you saw like curves, you saw bellies, you
Right.
saw women who were curvier. But then as time went on, beauty standards also kind of changed with that. And you see like, you had you're now more in favor of like thinner bodies, which is kind of interesting in a way. So I would love to hear, I know you touched on it a little bit, but also like what was your main motivation to kind of just focus on women and femmes bodies, especially fat bodies? Like what was that motivation for you to kind of like start doing and focusing on that subject?
So I feel like I was always, when I was doing art, I was always trying to find this path of like, where do I want to go with this? I don't really want to keep painting portraits all the time. Like, as much as I love it, it's not me. So when I was taking all of these art history classes, it was exactly that, of like always seeing these skinny bodies, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm so tired of this. And then we got to a point, we talked about, it's an artist, her name is Jenny Seville, and she paints fat bodies. Like she paints, and she uses like the most beautiful color palettes. And I was just like, oh, I always paint self portraits, maybe I should try. This was after I graduated though. Like I still in school, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself out there like that. But after I graduated, it was kind of like I had a dry spot. I didn't really paint anything, I didn't do anything. I was like, oh, I don't like what I'm making, so I don't want to make it. And then actually during quarantine was when I started like doing little sections of my body and my friends' bodies. And I was actually fully inspired by one of my friends. Her name is Haley Abrazazi. She did a whole entire photography project dedicated to the body. And I was one of the bodies in it. So I ended up drawing one of the pictures she did, and that just kind of like took me down a path of like, this is what I want to do. I mean, I want to represent the people that feel like they're not represented. So it feels great. It feels great to do.
Yeah, no, and like I think your art represents that so well, and like it's amazing how like it's just interesting because like I think the way that we consume art, media, and all of that, it affects how we see the world, right? I think art influences fashion, it influences beauty, but it influences what we see as aesthetically pleasing. And I think for us as
Right.
humans, even I know there is like a problematic like connotation with what beauty is because obviously a lot of that stems from like Eurocentric values and all of that. But I think art in a way has the ability to change people's minds about that. And we've
Right.
seen that, with like work that you've done. We've seen that with other Instagram um, artists like Shublit, who is they're a photographer based in Florida who like films fat bodies, and you see every part that like is deemed as like unacceptable in society displayed and highlighted. And I think that's one of the things I loved about your art actually. So like I saw a lot of the work and I'm just like, oh my God, like she's gonna see the double chin and she's gonna see the fupa and she's gonna see the
Right.
arms and then I see your work and I'm like, wait, you highlighted these in a way that is beautiful even for me. And like I I like to think like I'm still on my body positivity journey. I'd
Right.
like to say I don't think I'm like fully like, oh my god, awake, like this is it,
Same.
I am a new woman. I mean like there are days when I still like retreat back to high school me like, oh my god, I need to lose weight. But like your art, at least for me, seeing my body displayed in the way that you've painted them and drew them, whether it's a cartoon or a more like realistic painting, it's like, wow, this is powerful. This is a work of art. This is something that's showing my body in a positive light, right? Because fat bodies are always like we're always getting the short end of the stick when it comes to
Right.
representation. I feel it's like you see it in movies, like we've seen like how people would use fat suits to like denote like
Make it like a
to like
funny
yeah,
character.
make a funny character. You're always like the side character. You're always seen as lazy or like a slob or gross or,
Right.
a failure in some sort. And even we see that with the Avengers. Like, we had the character of like Fat Thor. I don't know if you've seen
I haven't
the
watched it.
there's a yeah, so like they had like a character where Thor like, gains weight and everyone's deemed him as Fat Thor. And he was used as like it was nice in one way where you saw a character who like Thor was able to fight and still be victorious even in his larger body, which was a great representation to see like, yes, I'm big, I'm not muscular, I'm fat, but I can still fight, I can still win these battles.
Right.
But then also his weight was still used as like that plot line. Like, oh, like there was a line where the mom was like, well, maybe you can eat a little salad or something. And I was just like, oh, wait, what? Like, what? Like
Yeah.
you almost had me at the positivity, and then you went back to the fat jokes. But
Yeah, it's
um,
like those movies too where you see someone like she was fat in the beginning and then she ended up in like a skinny body when she hit her head and it's like what like is this supposed to make me feel good?
exactly. Like it's like I think I know I know that movie you're talking about too. It was just like it's like, oh really? Like a bump in the head is supposed to make me feel like automatically good about myself and like
Right.
because my body was worthless before. But I think like art needs to move into a different direction, right? I think like and you are doing that. I think like seeing your art display these bodies that are underrepresented in the art world and the media world is amazing. And so I would like to ask you from an artist perspective, how can we start to dismantle fat phobia and bring in body justice and body positivity in art? Like what do you think is the way that we can start to move into that direction, and what is the way that we can start like normalizing fat bodies? How can we both as artists and non-creatives alike, like how can we start to do that?
So I think it starts with us, like the fat people, because we're always so used to hiding ourselves and kind of trying to be that side person that's just there. And all my friends are skinny people and I've always wanted to be out of the pictures because I was like, "Oh my god, if I stay next to them, I'm going to look like a whale," which is fine. It's okay to look like a whale. But it starts with us. We need to it's hard because it's kind of like it has to happen at the same time where we won't be confident until we see ourselves in society, but society won't be comfortable with us until we show ourselves. So it's kind of like a back and forth thing where these jokes of like, a skinny girl eating pizza is fine, but then a fat girl's eating pizza in a picture and it's like, oh my god, she's disgusting. And it has to start with those little things. It's not only my art isn't going to change the world that quickly on its own. I need more people sharing it. And I feel like sometimes as an artist, I'm like, oh, I notice when people don't share just the fat bodies. I notice there are some people that like my other stuff and they won't like my fat bodies. And I'm like, how can you follow me? How can you support me when you don't support even what I look like? And it starts with even the skinny people, just making us more visible, taking up space, like we talked about. We got to take up space.
Yeah, definitely. I think like with fat folks, I think because of a lot of the trauma that a lot of us has faced, like, bullying being one of them, diet culture, we kind of like had this like survival mode notion. Like, okay, we gotta hide. Like wear
Right.
clothes that are like covered. Wear, don't show up at the beach. Don't show up at parties. Just like make yourself as quiet and small as possible. But I really appreciate like a lot of fat activists, especially a lot of like black trans like women activists who are stepping up and it's like and like hey, I'm here and we're not going away. And like
Right.
we've seen that in Instagram. Like I've seen fat bodies like Jerry Jones, who recently got her CK ad on Soho, which I was
Such a
like,
beautiful photo.
oh my god! I went to school, both high school and college, right by that billboard, and it was always like the same five like cisgendered white bodies, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, nice. I also wear CK, like I won't even lie, like I have the CK underwear on right now,
Right.
but like I never saw my body there, and like seeing Jerry Jones, who is a trans woman, a black trans woman who's also fat, and she's not even like fat, like she's not even like super fat, she's like
Right.
mid fat, and I'm just like, oh wow, like I'm just like this is amazing and refreshing to see, and like seeing other folks like I don't know who's like the other because like I see like just all these bodies on Instagram, like people are just stepping up and are just like I'm here, I'm not going away, accept it. And it's also something that I've consciously actually do with my own personal Instagram photos. Like it's like weird because people are like, oh, have you ever heard of Facetune? And Facetune scares me. I'm gonna be really honest with you. Facetune scares me because like you could manipulate whatever features you want the way you
Right.
want it to. So I told this my personal oath to myself and also my followers is I never Facetune or edit any part of my body. So like all the pictures you see that are on my Instagram are filters, like yes, the colors and obviously changing like the lighting because obviously
Right.
lighting isn't the greatest sometimes. But I will never touch my body, any part of it in a picture, even if like if it's in quotes like if my fupa's out, it's out. If my
You know,
arm jiggle is out, it's out. It's
right. Like
I will never touch my body.
for me, I was guilty of like editing my pictures where I wouldn't even make myself look skinny. I would just try to like, oh, my waist looks really big in this picture. I just like slim it down a little. And it's almost like when I would do that, I'm like, oh, now I look normal. That's how my brain worked. We're like, now I look normal. Now I look like presentable for Instagram. And I've noticed in myself like taking pictures and not posting them because I'm like, oh, you can see what I actually look like. But it's a like I said, like you said, it's like it's still a journey that I'm still going down, and it's gonna take a while, but we're getting there.
No, definitely. Like I like yeah, even like I'm also guilty of the posing, like making sure certain angles are like done in a
Right.
certain way. So I'm like, oh, they can't see me. But even sometimes like doing the show, right? Like I'm intentionally like in gym clothes. I'm intentionally like not wearing makeup or glamorizing myself because I'm trying to normalize like, okay, this is me. This is who
This is
I
what we
am.
look like.
This is what we look like. My stomach's half out half the time. Like, you know what I mean? And like my double chin comes out is cool, whatever, because this is who I am. And I think like it shouldn't detract away from the message I'm saying, should not detract away from what, me as a person represents, and I think like it's good that we're heading into a direction. I think now, like, too, like, I tell myself all the time, I mean, it's weird. It's like, if I was born in this era with social media and Instagram, I feel like on one hand, I would feel miserable because seeing all these like influencer cultures and like
Right.
that unattainable beauty standard is like everywhere in your face. Because I feel like when I was in high school and middle school, it was still like social media wasn't a thing. Like we had MySpace and Facebook, but it wasn't like blown
Yeah.
up like this. And even then, I still felt a little bit of pressure. But like, I can't even imagine now with like teens and like young people feeling this like more because it's everywhere in your face. But then on the flip side, I feel like we're now entering an era, especially with this year, where people are starting to call out a lot of things that are problematic and all like the isms in the world, right? Like racism, sexism,
Yes.
homophobia, fat phobia, and these conversations are happening. And I always tell myself like, this is the world that little me wanted to grow up in. I think like
Me
yes, we're
too.
bombarded by all of this, but it is getting better. It is like people are talking about it, and I've seen like thinner allies come in and they're like, no, this is wrong because even though I'm in a thinner body, I've also felt the pressure of fat phobia. I've also felt the pressure of diet culture on myself. And like, it's just like,
It's
yeah,
the
it
fear of
affects our,
being fat. Like
yes,
they're literally like
exactly.
they're skinny and they're just scared to ever be fat. And
Yeah.
it affects everybody, I think. Obviously it affects fat people, I think a little bit more, but people are so scared to gain weight. And this whole quarantine, all I'm hearing is like, oh, I've gained weight. I'm like, okay, and
Oh my God, I hate that. Okay, so it's like, I think like people are terrified. Like, I remember growing up, and I remember this girl literally said once, not to me, but I basically was like a group discussion. She goes like, "My biggest fear is to be fat." And I'm like,
oh my
inside, I'm
god.
like, wait, but I'm fat. Like, but you know what it is? People aren't afraid to be fat. There's nothing with being physically fat. It's the treatment you get from
Right,
being fat. That's what people are terrified of. And I think when people start to recognize, it kind of separates out the two, right? There's nothing wrong with being fat. There's nothing wrong with being the body or the size that you are. But there is something wrong about the way you treat those bodies. And I
right,
think that's what people are afraid of, but haven't recognized yet, right? I think people are like, people just associate fat equal bad, but it's not fat equal bad. It's more like the treatment and the fat phobia behind it that is bad, and
right.
that's what people are afraid
And they
of.
know it too.
Yeah.
You know, they
Mhm.
know it and they still participate in it. You know,
Yeah.
being scared of fat bodies just kind of increases the fat phobia because now it's like you're admitting that it's there without saying it. You're admitting that fat phobia is a problem, but you're participating in the problem too.
100%. And like, yeah, even with the courts, like the jokes, right? They seem harmless. People are like, "Oh, why are you so sensitive? It's just a joke." But these jokes stem from just like racist jokes, just like, sexist jokes, or just like homophobic jokes. They stem from white supremacy. They stem from something problematic, and
Right,
that makes the joke problematic. And like something like quarantine bodies, like, who cares if you gain weight? People are stressed. You're thrown off your normal routine. If you're not
right,
eating the way that you're used to eating, it's because it's a new way to live. Like, you know what I
right.
mean? And I think like seeing that, even I'm guilty of it. Like, my internalized fat phobia is like, oh my God, like I shouldn't eat like this cookie because like I'm
I
I'm
don't
gonna
need
like I
it.
already ate, I don't eat it. I'm gonna gain weight. But then I'm like telling myself like, May, like I have to like check, I have to do those check-ins with myself all the
Thanks.
time. Like, yeah, like, like, oh, like, is this just you talking, or is this fat phobia talking? And even like the other day, like I had an experience where, so I had this dress that I got for a while ago, and I think like in the fall I was like a little bigger, so like it didn't fit. It couldn't zip her up. But then I
Hmm.
tried it on recently, and it zipped up like perfectly. So in my head, I'm like, yes, I lost weight. Yes, I'm so proud of myself. Oh my God, I can fit into this dress. But I had to, even within that positivity, I had to stop myself and be like, wait, what are you doing? That you're perpetuating this internalized fat phobia in yourself. Like,
Right.
why are you proud that you lost weight? Yes, it's nice you could fit into your dress and you love your clothes, but step back. What? Why are you happy? Like, doesn't this stem from
Right.
the fat phobic mindset that you want to dismantle? So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's like the
I
journey
feel
is, it's
that
like this back
too.
and forth. It's like,
It's like you really have to change the way that you think deep, deep down, which is the hardest thing
mhm.
to change.
Yeah, and I think like it's so hard for like, for women and like fat bodies, and for like, especially, I don't want to say like, I'm not saying like men don't have body image issues, because that is also a conversation that needs to be had. But I think like
Yeah.
it is pressured on women and femmes a lot differently, and a lot more like, what is it called, like intensely, I guess.
Right.
So like, it's hard because like, and it's also like rooted in misogyny too. Like like it's interesting because like, it's the people who always criticize my weight are women, but other men will like be the one. I think like my biggest bullies were always men talking about my body, and it's just like, once again, my body is the conversation of a man, and it's
Yeah.
just like, it's so frustrating.
It's like I just want to exist without you seeing just what I am, like what I look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. And like, it sucks. Like, I'm so sorry to hear that like your work on fat bodies isn't getting the amount of love that your other work is getting, because like, people have that like stigma. It's just like the
Yeah.
stigma of fat bodies is there even when you present it. Um but like, it's hard. I think like the stigma is there, and I think like for a lot of folks, like you mentioned, like dating and fat phobia. Oh my God, it's a whole Oh my, it's another like
That Tinder life
world.
was a struggle.
Oh my God, Tinder was a struggle, and I feel it's so weird because I feel like with fat bodies, we're not respected when it comes to dating, and I just love to hear like what are your thoughts on that, and it doesn't have to stem from like, your own personal experience, but
Right.
also just like navigating dating as a fat woman, particularly, like what is that like, and like just because like a lot of people, even like my closest friends don't even understand or like not even because like they're ignorant or like they're like willfully being malicious, but it's just like something that people don't think of. But how is dating as a fat woman or navigating the world as a fat woman like, and if you want to like elaborate on that, it's really either from your own personal experience or things that you witnessed.
So I have a boyfriend right now, and I even have those struggles sometimes. Like, why do you like me? Because like I'm fat. But that's a whole nother thing. When I used to date, it felt like whoever liked me liked fat people. It was almost like fetishizing fat people. And it's not like they just like people, they just like women or whatever. It's like, oh, it would always be, I love bigger girls. And I'm like, I don't look at you and say, I like guys with mustaches. Like, what are you saying? And it was always like a struggle of, oh, what if, my pictures are kind of like posed and nice and whatever. I'm like, what if they see me in person and they think I'm like gross? And it would be like that anxiety and the nerve of just worrying that they're going to like see me and walk away. And there would be times where like it would just be one date and then that's it. And I'd always go straight to like, it's because I'm fat. And, I feel like skinny people don't have that. They don't think it's like a physical thing. They don't, at least don't think it's their weight. For us, everything always goes straight to, it's because I'm fat. I didn't get a job. Maybe it's because they don't like fat people. And, I'm sure people feel the same with like racism where it goes straight to their race. And it could be like, we all have our things that some people might not like, but when the whole system of the world is making these things seem bad, you can't help but constantly be like, this thing about me that society doesn't want to accept is the reason why I'm not successful. Or, I don't pose in front of my paintings like a lot of people do because that's how some people get their following. They pose with their work. I don't do that because I'm not comfortable yet, being able to do that. And it's hard. Fat phobia, just like being insecure about being fat, it's everywhere. It follows us everywhere.
So real. Honestly, like I can resonate with like, like going like my biggest fear was like every time I go, I don't really date. I go on what's called interviews, like interviews before the sex. I don't date. It's like a job. I'm a horrible person. I am the
No,
reason
you're
why
not.
I'm
That's
single.
totally fine.
But I go on interviews. I don't go on dates. I go on interviews to like scope out the guy, make sure they're like, good for the whatever. But anyway, I'm digressing. Um, so anyway, on my interviews, I'm always like, before I meet up with them, the thoughts like okay, well, first thought that comes to mind is, am I gonna get killed? I mean, I think that's every
Yep,
woman's
number
like,
one.
number one, am I gonna get killed?
Is he gonna
Number
drug
two,
me?
is he gonna drop? Yeah, am I gonna get killed or like sexually assaulted? That's like the first
Yeah.
like banner. The second is, I'm afraid that this person may see me for my body and be like, no. And it's going to bring back a bunch of trauma from, back in the day and like
Yeah.
all that. Like, oh, once again, my body is worthless.
Yeah.
And it's, I've even seen on profiles where it's like, no fat women, or like I don't date fat girls, or on the
Like,
reverse, you're
dude.
fetishized. I feel like BBWs want this.
Oh
Like
my
I want
god.
worse. Like we're dehumanized either way. I feel it's like you're either like worthless or like you're a fetish. And it's just like
Right.
once
I can't
again
just
demonizing fat
be
bodies.
who I am. I have a question for you. You mentioned how
Yeah.
people message you and say like, oh, you're so confident, body positive. I feel like when I hear stuff like that, I get frustrated because I'm like, why can't you just call me pretty? Like
Mm.
it's always kind of like they notice like you're so confident to be posting your body as if I shouldn't be.
Yes.
And that's like a big thing for me where I always ask like fat people too. I'm like, how do you feel about that? Because I don't like it.
You flipped the script on me. Oh my god, I'm getting interviewed.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think I know how to discern the messages. There are some messages I received from fellow women who are like, "Oh, you inspire me because like I feel uncomfortable with my own body, even if I'm a
Hmm.
person of straight size or a person in a or socially acceptable body. You have helped me empower my journey. Which a message like that, I think, is fine. If I
Me
get a message
too.
like, I don't really get the "oh, you're so brave" messages. I think people know I will, like, people are a little more, like, on edge with me. I feel like a lot of my followers are a little on edge with me because I am such an outspoken person about, like,
Right.
problematic things. So I feel like people are like, I don't want to step on her toes. Like, she's probably like one of those. I think I have that, like,
Yeah.
connotation. But I think hearing that, like, I agree with you, right? It's like, why does me displaying my body have to be this brave act? Like, oh
Oh
my
my
God, this
God.
is the best thing. This is revolutionary. It shouldn't have to be revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be me being brave. Me being brave means like you kind of saying to me like, oh wow, like your body is not accepted by society. You're so brave for standing up, and it's
Oh
like,
my God.
no,
Like,
I just
I
want to
can't.
exist.
I just want
Like
to
I
be
just
able
want to.
to post what everybody else is posting.
Thank you. I just want to exist. That's it. Like leave me alone. I don't want to be this revolutionary martyr. Like oh
Yeah.
my God, yes, your body, and I'm just like, no, just I just thought it was cute. Like I thought my bikini was cute. Like I'm not trying to make a
Yeah.
statement here. Like you know, I think no, it's frustrating where it's like can't you? Why can't my pictures or why can't my things get more traction like other like folks in smaller bodies do? But
Right.
like at the same time, I think it's like I understand how it could be like representation in a way. Like I mean, representation for fat bodies doesn't have to be like Jerry Jones or like Tess Holiday or I don't know other fat. That's a problem. I don't even know fat models by
Yeah.
name.
I'm
That's
trying to
that's
think
another
of one.
that's another.
I'm
I don't
like,
want to say Ashley Graham because I feel like she's a little problematic and
she's
she's
literally
not
not
even
even fat.
yeah. So that's why I'm like I'm kind of like taking her out. But or even like Adele, right? Seeing
Oh
Adele
my
pre.
God.
I know that was heartbreaking to
That was
see.
triggering.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but um, but seeing like fat bodies and just being like even you within your own circle, right? Like you using your own body in your artwork. Me posting pictures on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think like you can always relate to folks around your circle a little better than like I can't like Lizzo's great, but I don't know Lizzo. I wish I knew
Right.
Lizzo, but I don't know
Me
her.
too.
You
I
know.
think Lizzo would make me feel great about, like, she just boost me
Mhm.
up to
One
a good
hundred
place.
percent. But like, yeah, like even with like celebrity culture, like, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, like what I was saying was just like with the fat bodies thing, like the brave thing. I think like once again, there's a way of saying it without being offensive. Like,
Yeah.
there's one thing to be inspiring, but there's another thing to be like, oh my God, you're so brave,
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
what are you trying to say?
What am I brave about?
What am I brave about? Exactly. Okay, like yeah. Actually, like since we mentioned it, like the Adele thing. Oh my God, like that frustrated me so much because like the amount of like she once again, right? She just wanted to pose a picture because she just wanted to pose a picture,
Right.
and then people bombarded and were like, "Oh my God, Adele lost weight. She's successful. She's
Right? As if
done
she
it. She's
wasn't
accomplished."
before.
Yeah, like first of all, this woman had like Grammys under her belt as a fat woman. Like
Yeah.
she had literal awards. She
Yeah.
has a killer voice. She has like top
She
charting,
was
like
always
top singles.
gorgeous. I mean,
Yeah.
I would look at Adele, this is at any point in her weight,
Yes.
I'd just be like, she is like one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, there's nothing wrong with losing weight, but
Nothing.
it's,
Yeah.
I can imagine that like the fat person in her was just
Mhm.
like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I'm always scared of losing weight because I wouldn't want people to be like, you look great all of a sudden. And I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
no, don't talk. Like, I can't, if I'm on a diet or I'm eating better, whatever it might be, if I'm exercising, it's a secret.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want people to be like, good for you.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. Like honestly, like even like I feel that like so like I fluctuate. I either like gain. There's seasons where like I gain a lot of weight from stress, or then I lose all the weight. Like I lose. Like it's
Right.
always there's no like my body works in extremes. I don't know why. But like whenever I lose weight, people are like, "Oh my God, you look so good. May looks great. Oh my God, she's like, like I get all these comments, and even like they're coming from a good place, but I still feel awkward about it. I'm
Yeah.
like, what, and like think with exercise culture too. Like now that I'm I think like now that I'm boxing and I've engaged in that sport, I feel like, I have an obligation to kind of let people know, like, hey, I'm enjoying this because I like to punch stuff. I'm angry. Like, this is a
Right.
way for me to relieve stress. This is a way for me to like focus on my mental health. Hey, I just like moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
like to
If
move my body
boxing feels
without.
good,
Mhm.
it's
And
not
like, I'm
always
not
like
here to
the
lose weight.
goal. Yeah, it's not the goal to just be like, I'm boxing so I can lose weight. Like, no, I'm boxing because I want to be stronger. I want to move my body. And like you said, I want to punch things. There's a lot to be angry about.
Exactly, fatphobia, racism. Like, listen, there is a lot of things I'm angry about, and I think that's what it is. Like, I think that's what I'm trying to do. Also, when I do post fitness pictures, right? When I
Right.
do post pictures of me working out, I'm conscious in the way that I present it, and I just like obviously like I hope that my followers get like a sense of like where it's like, okay, May is not promoting weight loss, May is not promoting working out to like lose weight, but May's promoting movement, May's promoting,
Yeah.
empowerment, May's promoting mental health I've tried to intentionally do that with my social media, even like, recognizing that exercise and weight loss pictures or even like fitness pictures may be a trigger for folks. So like I just kind of being intentional about that. So I'd love to like shift gears a little bit because we can go. I think you and I like we're both very passionate people as
Yeah.
well, and like we can go on about talking about dismantling the patriarchy and all that.
Yeah.
That's literally why we bonded at the pop up.
Right.
But I would love to hear like you mentioned like you run a small business, and I think for a lot of artists, especially independent artists, with Corona being a thing, it's impacted a lot of their sales, their businesses, and things like that. So I'd love to hear about like how COVID-19 has impacted your business, if it did, and like the challenges that you faced like in the midst of that like season. Well, we're
Yeah.
still in
So,
Corona season, but
right. So, actually, prior to COVID, I was not advertising my stuff at all. I wasn't constantly making things. I was kind of focused on like, I need a career, I need a career, I need to make money and blah, blah, blah. So, I was like, not about my art. I was just kind of like, maybe this will take me somewhere, but for now, I need to find a job. And then with COVID, being unemployed, staying home all day, I started promoting myself more. I started finding Facebook groups that, there's one called like the Risque Art Group, and I started posting all of my stuff there. And my sales actually went up, which was like a blessing because I lost my job. So I was just like, oh my God, I get to do what I love and people are buying it. So I feel like I'm a little on the other side. I'm like one of the few people that are on the other side of what happened during quarantine. But yeah, I was just like, it really boosted how I felt about my art. I've always been confident about my art. It's like one of the few things where I'm like, yeah, I know I'm good. Or like, a lot of the times you'll be like modest about it. And I'm always really comfortable with what I post and how I create. So getting that boost of confidence during COVID has been like, oh my God, I want to keep doing this. And now it's like I'm not really selling as much because I'm not really promoting as much, but I am making more for myself, and it feels really good for me. I think number one thing is like just being actively posting. Just like even if you're posting like progress shots, people like that. People like to see the process of what you're doing, and giving away art, it's not a big deal if you're giving away something that's worth $40. It's really, I like to do it every now and again. And it builds a community. It builds a lot of people who support you and who like what you do. And especially with the fat bodies, it's kind of like I know my followers for the most part like don't see me and look at something and think like it's disgusting. So it feels nice to have that community of people.
yeah, no, definitely. I think art has that power to kind of build like to start discussions, to start a conversation, to it's thought provoking, and I think your art does that really well. It brings in a conversation of how we look into fat bodies, but also our own bodies, whether you're fat or you're not. And I think that's like something that's powerful. So that's like something powerful that you do. And I'm glad to hear
Thank
that like
you.
sales are going up. I know like for a lot of my fellow artist friends, it's been a mixed bag. But of
Right.
course, like because we're coming up on our hour, um, I'm obviously going to promote your art page. So, but I would like,
Thank
is there
you.
anything, like, if you want to talk about that, like, your art Instagram and like what kind of work that you do if you're doing commissions and like, this is your self promotion time.
Okay, so basically, I drew May for one of my main commissions, which is the body drawing. They're my favorite thing to do. I don't really charge all that much. I really just charge for like my time and that's it. But honestly, I'm willing to work with whatever people want. So portraits, bodies, anything. I do pet portraits. Some people like their cat more than they like people. So but honestly, I would just love to build, like I said before, a community of people that support artists and support, you don't always have to buy something to be supportive. It's as simple as sharing something on your story and being like, look at what my friend can do. So I would just love to meet more people and connect with more people, especially if people like you. I feel like they'll like me because we're so similar. So yeah, I mean, feel free to hit me up about anything and everything. We could talk about fat people for hours upon hours if that's what you want. So yeah.
And I'll definitely put your what's it called, your Instagram handle down below so everyone can see and like
Thank
they can
you.
follow your art, follow your work, support you, whether it's through monetary means or of course like publicity, right? Like
Right.
I tell people all the time, like share your friends' work, like do it, like tag them, like promote their stuff, like their
Right.
pictures. I have my best friend's an artist based in New Orleans, and she actually said that because we like my other girlfriends and I started like liking and posting her stuff and like commenting, it's boosted her sales, boosted the
Right. The
algorithm online.
algorithm.
Oh, I hate the algorithm. It hates like not influencers and like yeah. But anyway, like support your friends' work. Like you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
especially like just like do it. Like that's like the most like important thing to do.
It's
Well, thank you
free.
so yeah, it's free. But of course, like if you want to pay for your friend's art, pay full price. Don't be like, oh,
Right.
I want a friends and families discount. I mean, they offer, you know, that's different. That's a different story. But like,
Right.
pay the full price. Like, support your friend's work. Like, and that's what I'm a firm believer in. And of course, I'm looking more forward to like working with you more, Melissa, on different things. Like, let me get my pictures. Let me get my let me get like my poses right, my like lighting
I'm
right.
very
But
thankful for like how supportive you always are.
oh, no problem. Thank you so much for like being you and creating this art, and that's like really important. And thank you so much for coming on my show, Melissa. I really appreciate it. And of course, I look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.